Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful March the 6th, 2020. Ground of the Portes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we had a beautiful day. I think the clouds ran out of rain and they left us, and the sun showed up today, and it was beautiful outside. I even went out and washed my car and got a tan.
Yeah, you got a tan and you got your car washed. That's 2 for 1, Big C. Often get that at fast food restaurants. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. So did you say you went out, did you deliberately get a suntan, or did you do the spray-on tan? There's a movie star in L.A. He's always spraying on something, Big C. Are you spraying on, or was it natural from the sun, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I was out there with my Speedos on, my T-shirt off and everything, and had the lather up and going on, and the sun was on my back just baking me.
Yeah.
I felt like a piece of bacon when I was done.
That reminds me of a couple of college parties. I remember in college, a lot of times on Fridays, people would go hang out by the pool, and they would get these suntans in the heat of the springtime. And most of my Caucasian friends, they would go out and spray suntan lotion on them, trying to get their skin dark. And then there was an African-American girl. She actually did the same thing. They were asking her, why are you trying to tan, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it's getting that cocoa look, Charlton. I mean, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice.
The darker the berry, the sweeter the juice, Big C. And I hear you have proof. It's all fair, love, and war. Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear, welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports Podcast. I love giving out our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They're really well equipped, Big C, to help not only veterans but their families when they have issues. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, just go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net and get some help. Big C, you actually made me aware that line was even out there. Why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, as we approach March Madness, a lot of veterans have to deal with madness every day in society with the troubles that they go through. And I know we talk about the suicide prevention hotline number a lot, but a lot of these veterans, Charlton, that face these ordeals that they go through are homeless. They're destitute. They don't have a cell phone where they can make the call. They don't have a computer where they can get online. And that's one of the troubling things that you think about in our society is, as well as they talk about how the economy is doing, the administration, how this is the greatest time in America, the least amount of unemployed. And I was driving down the street today, and I saw a guy standing on the corner with a sign that said Macy's closing. Think about Macy's, one of the largest retailers in America, is closing the doors on their stores. But yet our administration talking about how jobs are just rolling off the block and anybody can get one. But our veterans can't get them, and they stay destitute, and unfortunately a lot of them are committing suicide, Charlton, on a daily basis at a horrific rate. And the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is one of those things that can help them. But we also got to find ways to get them jobs so that they have a sense of ability about themselves, that they have a sense of purpose, and they don't fall into these doldrums. And with stores closing around this country, as they're talking about the stock market's doing well, the veterans are not invested in the stock market. We need to find a way to have that stock market return that money that they're making and get these veterans some phones so they can get some help from the National Suicide Prevention Hotline.
That makes a lot of sense, Big C. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Or if you're online, go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and they can get some help. Really appreciate that, Big C. Also want to say launching the real estate TV listing channel in the spring of 2020. The goal is simply to recruit 100 real estate brokers to put their properties on television, and that way you'll stand out from the brokers that don't have that option, and really looking forward to that. In fact, it's happening in different markets all over the country. You know, today, I know as you've been washing your car, Big C, I went by, I saw this psychic line. It said this, I was driving down the highway, and it said psychic, right? And so I said, well, let me pull up. And oftentimes, you know, where I am, there's a lot of water. So I just went by. I said, you give me the winning Mega Million numbers, and then I'll pay you to tell me my future. She said the winning numbers are 3, 28, 33, 40, 68, 19. So I told her I'm going to read it out loud so the whole universe can hear it. If it makes sense, I'll go back and get my psychic read on Big C. But it's amazing how commerce is happening. And I heard that there were some things, just to be very serious about a matter, there's some things that happened up in, I think, the state of Washington and Seattle, and they were talking about that coronavirus again and how they have the largest outbreak up there. A lot of schools have been closed, and they were talking about people, even in San Francisco, that were still on a boat. They haven't let the people off into the mainland yet, and there are people running out of medications, and then people that may be running out of food, so they're using helicopters to fly in, you know, some of the information or some of the things that they need to be safe. And I just think about when we have veterans, they're in crisis every day. And sometimes people say, well, go to a psychic, let a psychic tell you something. Some people say, Google the news and let the news tell you something. But I still saw POTUS today, with all the things that I'm wrapping up this story. I saw POTUS, he was on a program on Fox the other day. And some knucklehead reporter asked him, had he talked to President Obama since, you know, the inauguration or whatever. And he said, yeah, he saw him at a service for a Bush, and it was hello and goodbye. Now, here's a president that buys prostitution or, you know, pays $135,000 for it, that grabs women by their private parts, that says beat the heck out of somebody, he'll pay your medical bill or legal bill. Some of his friends have committed so many crimes. And here he is on Fox News getting an applause for saying he won't shake hands with a decent man. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, but that just shows you the nature of the beast, Charlton, when you look at that he's making light of his predecessor in the Oval Office. And with all the things he's done, I mean, when you surround yourselves with criminals, it's hard to socialize with good people.
Yeah, it really is. So I was embarrassed that Fox News, and ironically, they're all white. They were all Caucasian. I know they have a black reporter on there that look like they're affirming that they have this affirmative action thing, or that they don't have the race issue. But it's just it's appalling to me when I see how there's certain members of our Caucasian society that won't even call a spade a spade. Then that they'll get a standing ovation that says, from a president that says, I didn't shake President Obama's hand, I have nothing to say to him. In fact, he could have done a better job stopping the virus. The virus didn't start with President Obama. But the fact that there's so many people that applauded a guy who was being, you know, draconian and also gross, especially if you have a daughter and you have that man like that paying her money for whatever, people do what they want to do. But to say that I won't shake the hand of a decent man, I just thought that was egregious. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's what you do to appeal to your base.
Yeah.
You have to understand, when you listen to the president talk and you think about the MAGA hat. The MAGA hat is the new Ku Klux Klan hat of the new millennial, Charlton, is what it is. And when you think about the things he said in trying to be elected, that you want to take this country back to what it used to be, when you could abuse minorities and there was no backlash for it.
Yeah.
That was his stomping ground, Charlton, when he was running for election. And he woke up those people saying it's okay to be racist in America.
Yeah.
And you've seen all of the racial crimes that have occurred since he become president.
Yeah.
The mass amount of school shootings, the destruction of synagogues, and other things that have gone on in our society, Charlton. And he said, well, it doesn't have anything to meet. The race riots that have gone on in places like Charlottesville, it doesn't have anything to me, but he never condemned it, Charlton.
No.
He never condemns anything negative against American citizens.
Well, I still remember, and people can Google this, his family, they had the largest racial discrimination, housing discrimination ever filed in New York City they would not rent places to African Americans. They put C, the letter C, on the application to dictate don't rent them an apartment. That's POTUS. So as he first denied that we had the corona outbreak and that it was just a media skit by the Democrats to kind of keep them from getting elected, the Atlantic Beach Police Department today in Florida, that's down there where Mar-a-Lago is, Big C, they're offering, get this, they're offering meth users free, like FREE, free testing for their methamphetamine for coronavirus. Now, I believe meth use is illegal. So it's like you want to catch a rat, you got to put out, a trap with some cheese on it. So the trap is to get the people that are dealing with methamphetamine. That would mean a lot of, wealthy people too, because it's a white problem, middle-class white problem for the most part. And they're going to test them for doing something illegal to see if they have coronavirus. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Justin, I think it's what you said, a trap. Now, you think about this. You're a meth user.
Yeah.
And I mean,
when
you're
me.
using meth,
not
you
me,
have no sensibility in life. You
right.
lose your teeth, you lose your job,
yeah.
you lose your life. But you're more concerned about what methamphetamine, what corona would do to you over methamphetamine.
Right.
Methamphetamine is going to kill you.
Yep.
But you're going to have your methamphetamine checked to make sure it's pure.
Right.
How stupid can you be? But
yeah.
I mean, I can see the arrest rate going up real high with all the meth addicts coming in there. Hey, can you check my meth to make sure it's good and it has no coronavirus on it?
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, sometimes if it wasn't serious, it really would be laughable. And I just think as a joke again, I was offended personally as a man of color that actually reads to hear a guy that's been sued by so many women and settled lawsuits and talking about where he's going to grab women and saying I didn't shake the hand of President Obama other than hello, goodbye. And that got a laughing endorsement by these Caucasian audience and reporters that were in some town hall on Fox. And I hope he gets a chance to sit quietly in the room with their daughters and do that same egregious behavior. I just thought that was a joke, Big C. Also, as we talk about what happened, with that virus, that coronavirus, I think there's more things, around the country as we just get on with sports, and we'll talk more about sports too. I think there was something to do with the Olympics where they were canceling and deciding, it was the World Cup skiing championships that had been canceled due to coronavirus, that President Trump, who said he wouldn't shake Obama's hand, had nothing to say to him, said that this was a Democratic ploy, and I guess science doesn't matter, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, all of what's going on around the world doesn't matter. He's saying it's just going to disappear. Don't worry about it. It's real light. It's only been a few people. But you have to understand that the administration has been against testing large swaths of people in the United States. And that's what a lot of people are not taking in.
Yeah.
Is that the administration will not release the test kits. They want to keep it confined to a certain area where they have the tests in. It's not all over.
Yeah.
Now think about it. Of the people that have been tested for the coronavirus in America, 22% have it. Of the hundreds that they've tested, it come back with a 22% positive rate.
Yeah.
So they have not even tested 1,000 people in the United States.
Wow.
It's only been several hundred. So if they test 1 million people and 22% have corona, Charlton, that's epidemic.
Yeah.
It's really epidemic when you got 22% of several hundred.
Yeah.
But the administration, to keep it under wraps, saying, don't worry about it. And I believe the president was down at the CDC today in Atlanta after he had left Tennessee.
Yeah.
Going down there and standing there with his MAGA hat on, not knowing what to say, just sitting there letting everybody else talk.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be the consoler-in-chief at this time. When the country is in a potential crisis, you have to be man. You have to be the man in the room. You got to be the big boy. You got to put your big boy drawers on.
Yeah.
And stand up there and talk with confidence and intelligence and explain to people. I understand you have a staff around you that's supposed to be your go-to guy.
Yeah.
But you have to be the big boy in the room to assure people that you are knowledgeable about the position that you hold and not just sit there and talk about the stock market is doing great when we have a health crisis in America.
Very well said. And then Tokyo Olympics, they hold tests even without fans and top athletes. And this is by the Associated Press. It is announced that despite the spreading virus, not the Democratic hoax that POTUS was talking about, now he looks like a knucklehead.
I wonder if we have Democrats in China, in Korea, in Italy, Charlton, in the European and Asian countries where we're having this huge breakout.
Yep.
I wonder if our Democratic leaders have gone over there and spreaded this and made it happen around the world.
Very well said. So in Kentucky, in Tokyo, despite the spreading virus, the Tokyo Olympic organizers, they have finally held a test event. The recent outbreak of the coronavirus has forced them to rearrange or postpone several events, irrespective of what POTUS said ignorantly as a president. It's amazing how you got elected by Russia and whoever helped them. But they allowed a sports climbing event.
What needs to be done, Charlton, is every state who has a Republican senator, they need to be out there tested. When we think about the Senate run by the Republicans, all of those guys should vote to have the corona test kits in their state.
Yeah.
And see how their constituents react if they find out they have corona in this state. Is it the Democrats doing it, or they've been hiding it from their constituents?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Even when you think about science in Japan, they're saying it's impossible to tell if the spreading virus will allow things to happen as far as more people being affected. I hope they can stay on top of it. We know it's about being on top of science. It's not about politics. It's about science. China's reporting that more than 3,000 people have died from that virus. 3,000. Again, according to POTUS, that's just a Democratic ploy. And he says he won't shake Obama's hand, and he gets a laugh and an applause from all Caucasian group. I just don't understand the way some people think, Big C. But that's all fair in love and war. I still hope and pray that our medical team can get on top of it.
Well, when I saw how vamped he was when he talked about that today, Charlton, he said, well, the people that died were elderly. So, they were weak anyway. You think about that. Those were someone's parents, grandparents, siblings. But to sit there and say that the people who died from this coronavirus in America, they were old anyway.
Wow.
That means you have lack of empathy for American life. And you are unapologetic about somebody's family member who doesn't have access to the health care that you do. And here it is. This is what Americans really need to think about.
Yeah.
This is a man who is trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
He sure is.
And what are we going through right now? A medical epidemic in America. And he's trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
So if they abolish the Affordable Care Act, think about how many people would die because they wouldn't have access to medical care against this coronavirus, John.
That's a very good point, because some people are plotting for their own destruction. That's called ignorance. There's a person that actually went and got tested he thought he had symptoms and went and got tested, and they gave him the test to make sure that he was not symptomatic. And so this was just on the news. I saw it last night. So it came back negative, so he was happy about that. But because he did not have medical insurance, and you talked about POTUS, and they're bragging about trying to strip away the Affordable Care Act because it's called Obamacare, and a lot of dumb people don't know it's the same thing. They sent him a bill for $3,000 just to the test. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's the Affordable Care Act. And all of those people who want to back the president on saying abolish Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act,
they're dumb.
That they don't need it, that they have something better, even though he hasn't put forth a plan. The only reason he wants to strip it from America because it has Obama's name attached to it.
Yeah.
And all of those people, whether you're in his base or not, ask yourself, while he's sitting there trying to figure out a medical plan for America, just like as we look at the NFL players who should be asking for lifetime health care, and it runs out 5 years after their playing days are over, and they don't have health care, even though they're going to extend the season and they're going to vote to approve that.
Yeah.
Just like Americans, don't allow your senators to take away the Affordable Care Act.
Well, I know that makes so much sense, Big C, but a lot of people, when they applaud an inhumane person and a person who's not decent, I mean, just Google his background. It's a shame, but some people don't talk about it. That's why I love talking about it.
The president, he only does interviews on Fox.
Yeah.
That's his channel. Fox is his channel. Everybody on Fox Googles and Gagas behind the president.
Yeah.
Even when they're sitting there knowing that he's lying, and I saw snippets of what he did last night. And even when they caught him in lies a couple times, they let him walk back out of it.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to hold him to the fire. They sit there, they're asking questions, he lied about it, and you can see the expression on their face. Wait, that's not true.
Yeah.
But they're never going to say that because it's the Fox it's the Trump station, Fox.
Yeah. I feel bad for those people that want to be respected, but they're willing to sell everything just to be close to some guy who has lawsuits and sexual assault lawsuits, racial discrimination lawsuits, all kind of garbage, plus the $135,000. Anyway, people do what they want to do. Big C, I want to just touch on a little bit of the NBA tonight, because going into this weekend, it really is great. And before I even get into the schedule, last night, Oracle Arena, not even Oracle Arena, but Chase Center in San Francisco, Steph Curry comes back. He drops 23 points, a little bit rusty, but something that I thought was amazing just watching some of the clips on television is the crowd was back into it. It wasn't a sold-out crowd. All the seats may be sold, yes, but not everybody goes to the games. But last night I saw what made Golden State kind of must-see basketball. The crowd was into it. They were chanting, "Warriors, Warriors," and it was just amazing. And his energy, I thought it helped them play well against the defending NBA World Champion Toronto Raptors. And, of course, they fell at home because they really don't need to win, as you talked about before. But it was great to see him back in the arena and lacing it up. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, he came back. He just came back to play a little bit, Charlton. That's all. He just wants to show that he's healthy. He wants to work through some things so that he's not sitting all year long trying to get to that point next year.
Yeah.
But the Warriors are not trying to win. Steph Curry came out, knocked down a few points. It was good to see. I mean, 23, 7 and 7.
Yep.
That's not a bad outing in your first outing. I guess for as far as your statistics go, he'll be in the MVP hunt if he keeps putting up numbers like that. But, Steph Curry is what he is. He's a gentleman who shoots for a living. And he's going to do that regardless. The way he plays the game is the way he's always going to play the game. Taking those months off did not hurt him. His right hand is his right hand.
Yeah, his right hand is a right hand. He fell on the ground one time. He was tripped by somebody, and the crowd goes, "Ooh!" But it was just a slip and fall, and he got back up and still played. Still incredible with the behind-the-back passes. I really hadn't seen. I know you have some guys in the back of the day that did it, but when I saw guys like Jason Kidd do that out of high school, and then of course Magic Johnson when he played for Showtime in L.A., just what Curry does and getting guys jumping up off the bench. Imagine when they get everybody healthy again. They'll definitely be in the thick of things next year in the NBA. Tonight's NBA schedule, Friday, March 6th, we have Atlanta. They're playing at Washington. San Antonio is at Brooklyn. OKC is at New York, Big C. Utah's at Boston. And that should be a good game, but Boston should get it. Indiana at Chicago. Orlando at Minnesota. We have Miami at New Orleans. Zion Williamson and them good old Pelicans. Normally when the Pelicans is in Florida, it's about the Scarface movie. He loved Pelicans, Big C. This is a game Miami's probably going to win on the road. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, if you look at New Orleans, they've dropped 4 in a row?
Yeah.
This is not a solid team. I mean, you got a highlight reel in Zion Williams, but you have a team that still has to learn how to play together, and his teammates are sitting back watching him.
Yeah.
And when they're on the floor offensively, it's actually 4 against 5 because Ball can't shoot.
Yep.
So all he's going to do is look to pass. And when they're on defense, they have a liability with Zion. They got 4 on 5 there.
Yeah.
Because he's not giving any help on the defensive end, and he's not hitting the boards defensively.
Not doing it at all. Memphis is at Dallas, the great Luka Doncic. Portland is at Phoenix down in the Valley of the Sun. And the game of the night will be the Milwaukee Bucks at the Los Angeles Lakers. That's a 7:30 tip-off down in Los Angeles at Staples Center. It's always kind of the talk when these two teams are leading their respective divisions. The Lakers lead the top of the Western Conference. Milwaukee leads the top of the Eastern Conference with the best overall record in the NBA. And you have Giannis and King James. These two guys are mentioned about, player of the year. Will it be Giannis? Will it be King James? I would love if they waited until the season was over before they start giving out MVP. But we know you have to create the media first. Give me your thoughts on how this game goes down in L.A., Big C. Your thoughts.
Well, they do wait till the season is over when they give out the MVP. They don't wait till the finals is over because there's people who rise up in the finals that are not that type of player during the regular season. If you remember when Andre Iguodala won it for the Warriors when they won their first championship under Steve Kerr. He was the finals MVP. Was he the season MVP? No, he played on the team with the season MVP.
Yeah.
So it's about the regular season MVP. The playoffs has its own MVP of the championship team.
And then
so they're two separate entities when you look at that.
Yeah.
When you look at LeBron James, he has to be on the floor for the Lakers to win. He accounts for 50 points a game for the Lakers through points and assists.
Yeah.
When he's not on the floor, that offense becomes very stagnant. And this is a game where Giannis can have a big game because the Lakers really don't have anybody that can play him man up. Even if you talk about Davis, he can't man up with Giannis. This is one of those games that if Giannis gets off, they'll blow the Lakers out.
Well, they won, I believe, they won the first game of Milwaukee by 7 points. We'll see what happens. It's also how games are called because this is just my own thinking. Everybody has an opinion to it. Of course, home teams are going to get the benefit of the doubt. And if it's King James against Giannis, King James is going to get the benefit of the doubt. We'll see if the Lakers are smart enough to employ some of the defense that the Miami Heat used when they go up against Giannis. I want to just bring up a game that happened last night because I was so excited to see it. I was excited to see the LA Clippers going down to H-Town to play them good old boys from Houston, the Rockets. And the Rockets did not have a good liftoff, Big C. In fact, there were times when they were blown out they were losing by 20 points at times, Big C. And they closed the gap a little bit. But like I was saying before, if you don't have a big man to go down in the paint and bang some bodies around, then you don't have it. And you can only count on your shooters being hot from three, maybe 30 to 40 at the most % of the time, Big C. And I think they got exposed last night. They got pounded inside by the Clippers. The Clippers were smart enough not to fall into the trap of trying to run up and down the court with these guys. They kept taking it to the paint, and they pounded them, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the problem with the Rockets last night, Charlton, is that nobody chose to go inside. They kept bombing away from three.
Yeah.
And what you have to do periodically, even if you're a three-point shooting team, you saw that last night with Steph Curry.
Yeah.
You have to go down the lane and get a layup.
Yeah.
You can't always just shoot the threes, and that's what the Rockets did last night, even though they were cold. If they had gone to the rim and made a couple layups because the rim was wide open, Charlton, the lane was wide open, they could have got to the basket. That's where they fell short in that game. Even though they were cold from the outside, regardless of what type of shooting team you are, you have to get some points in the paint.
Yeah, you got to get those points in the paint. But again, so I ask you, they didn't go inside because they don't have Capella. And if you know, we talked about
How tall was Steph Curry?
Well, what's he about, 6'3"? 6'3"?
Okay, he went to the rim last night, didn't he?
He did, exactly.
And when he went to the rim, nobody on the court for the Warriors was more than 6'8".
Yeah.
So you don't need a 7-footer to go get a layup.
But
when you looked at Capella when he was with the Rockets, he wasn't averaging but 11 or 12 points a game.
Yeah.
That's not the deal breaker. You still got to go to the rim. When you look at every team in the NBA, you got to go to the basket. Zion Williams, 6'5", he goes to the basket all the time. He's not shooting anything beyond 3 feet away from the basket.
Yeah.
So it's not about whether you're a three-point shooting team. It's not about how tall you are. You still have to go and get a layup periodically.
It's just easier when you're bigger. You talked about the Warriors last night with Curry going to the paint, but also it was almost like the NBA dunk contest when the defending NBA world champion Toronto Raptors were playing over in San Francisco, especially Serge Ibaka and Siakam. These guys were dunking the ball like able to practice, Big C, but Ibaka has the size, but they were just playing, they were exploited inside of the paint, and I just saw where that big man wasn't there last night for Houston. But maybe their legs got tired. You can only run so much, and they're a streaky team, but they don't have that big guy that they can go down to when they need to. But I wanted to get this before we get to the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. The Lakers are at a pivotal moment right now. They're playing arguably the top two teams in NBA between tonight, Friday, and then Sunday in Los Angeles when they play the Clippers at 12:30 on ABC. So they won't have that extra rest. They play tonight, the 7:30 tip-off. It's a noontime Sunday. Now, many people feel that the Clippers really are the best team in the Western Conference, maybe in the NBA. So the Lakers are going to show us tonight and Sunday if it's hype or what POTUS called fake news, playing the top two teams. Big C, your thoughts?
But, when you say pivotal, this is the regular season. There's nothing pivotal in the regular season when you're already solidified in the playoffs. The Milwaukee Bucks are already in. They've won the East. The Lakers are already in.
Yeah.
Whether they finish first or second in the West, they're already in. The pivotal point when you get to game 5 of a series, Charlton, and you're up 3-2, that's a pivotal point in a season. When you're here at the regular season, this is just playing out the stretch, trying to stay healthy. That's all they're trying to do. And this is not a back-to-back. You've got a day separation between the games, so it's the pivotal part I don't get. But, the weekend, you got to play who's on the schedule. That's the NBA.
Yeah, they got to play their schedule. I look forward to seeing it. Basketball really is exciting. It is fantastic. We'll take the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. We'll come back and talk more about the game called basketball, Big C, and it's not fake news. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we're back from what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on the apps that I love called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really looking forward to that. Also launching a real estate listing channel in the spring of 2020. Some of those channels are already up, and we'll be adding to that in the spring of 2020. The goal is to get 100 real estate brokers to list their properties on TV, and that really makes them a superstar for anyone who's ever seen real estate TV channels. Looking forward to that. You know how we talk about the future of sports, Big C? The future of sports, and you say that the ratings are down, and a lot of the commissioner will say, well, the ratings are down for NFL, the ratings are down for NBA basketball, the ratings are down for Major League Baseball. Ratings are not down, in my opinion. Technology has a curve to it. I know some good old boys, they still have the 8-track players in their cars. There's some people that still play the 33 and the 45 records because they still have the records now. But most people don't have cassette decks in their car. They don't even have a CD player anymore. What they do when they get into the car is they turn on that XM satellite and they can get the channels that they want to hear. The same thing happens when it comes to TV and technology. Just because I choose not to watch cable TV anymore, I get it on the stream, it doesn't mean that I'm not watching that event that the Nielsen box shows up for at a network television event. So the future of sports, it is interactive, it's immersive, and it's intense. As more sports leagues, Big C, they opt for the digital broadcast, not the cable, not the network. The whole idea of what it means to watch a game is going to change. They don't do what you're doing with your friends when you spill barbecue sauce and peanut butter all over your sofa, Big C. Your thoughts?
But did you ever realize when you get a subscription for streaming?
Yeah.
Cable, however you get a subscription, they're not free.
Yeah,
okay?
That's true.
And everything is packaged. Have you ever gone to a sports bar when they have a fight on?
Oh, especially in Vegas,
and they have to pay and they charge people to come in?
Yeah.
The bar bought the fight, okay? That's one bar that has the fight. But when they buy the fight, they sell it based on the capacity of the bar.
Yeah.
So if your bar holds 500, they charge you for 500 people when you buy that. Just like when you buy a subscription for you say streaming.
Yeah.
When you stream, you're paying for that. It's not free. You show me the free internet and all that other stuff that's out there. So they have an accounting of what you do. Whenever you log into a channel, it's a number that clicks for that. As you think, the Nielsen boxes were eliminated a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's just like in radio ratings. It used to be, and I'm trying to remember, R&R where they rated it.
Yeah.
Now it's a stream that rates that. It picks up what you're listening to and all they have to do is hear it for 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Just like on television, when you click onto something when you're streaming, once you're in there 45 seconds, it clicks. So don't think that because the name of tracking has changed that they don't track.
Right.
They know what people do because you buy subscriptions for it. You say you stream on your phone. Is your cell phone service free? Is that
no.
streaming that you have on your phone free?
No.
No, it's not. You're paying for that. So they're tracking what you're doing.
However, I will say this. You mentioned the sports bar, and we used to do our show from a sports bar several years ago. A sports bar maybe down at a bar in Las Vegas may have 1,000 people watching that game, even though they're only paying for that subscription. If those 1,000 people were at home, they may have 1,000 boxes clicked on. So it doesn't mean that the service is not being, or the sports are not being watched as much. It's just people have a different way of getting their information. But I think it's it's great for technology. I remember when I first grew up.
But also in tracking.
Yeah.
They track based on what they need to do advertising-wise.
Yep, that's true.
And I know you say kids and stuff stream and watch all that. These kids are not going to a car dealership buying a car.
No.
They're not going to a mortgage company financing a house. They're not doing a lot of things where these advertisers put things on. Advertisers put things on programs because they know it's being tracked.
Yeah.
And they know they're getting results. That's how advertisers work. So don't think that advertisers are not knowledgeable about who's watching and who's not watching, even though you say the streaming is there and people are not paying attention.
Yeah. I mean, it's all how people get their information is changing, and I really just love staying on top of that technology. And speaking of sports bars, there's a fight down in Las Vegas. The UFC is at it again. 248, Adesanya versus Romero, and you have Adesanya's 18-0, Romero's 13-4. That's going to be at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Now, ironically, I saw the fight with Fury and also Wilder, Big C, and there's a lot of people sitting around watching it, and, I mean, they just have ways of watching it. But so I'm just trying to say, I saw it, I didn't have to pay for it, but I had to see it. It is good to have friends like that. What they say, I got friends in long places. Are you interested in this fight, or do you want a bigger name? Can we get burned out on fighting when they fight every week? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's always been my stance on the MMA. Who's the draw card in the MMA? They got to keep reaching back. You're putting on a championship fight, and one of the guys have 4 losses.
Yeah.
You would never get that in a heavyweight match, Charlton, in boxing, that you got a guy coming in fighting for the title with 4 losses. That's where the MMA is that any and everybody can fight. And I know these are some tough individuals.
Oh, yeah.
I would not mess with any of those hombres.
Right.
But when you look at it, you don't have to have a pristine record to be champion. You come in, you got 4 losses.
Yeah.
If you lose, you got 5, but you're still in contention.
Yeah. I got a friend of mine, because I cover a lot of MMA fighting up in Northern California. Uriah Faber has a company called Team Alpha Male. In fact, we had him on a program a couple of years ago. He was just doing an interview with Dana White, and then he called into our show. It was right around the time that Floyd Money Mayweather had that fight with Conor McGregor. And these guys, they have people that fly in from all over the world. Ironically, it just popped into my mind. They fly in from all over the world to train in Northern California, one of the biggest UFC fight clubs in the country, really. And I know that's going to be probably slowed down now, because a lot of fighters do come from South America, also Europe. I just thought about that as you said that, Big C, so that's something to be paying attention to also. I want to tap onto some Major League Baseball, and then I want to get into your thoughts on some college basketball that I think is fascinating, especially when people have their opinion. But Aaron Judge, he's a Northern California young man, played baseball at Fresno State. He was going to play football for the Bulldogs. They saw him hit a baseball. They said, my goodness, that boy he can hit a stick like walking tall, Big C. But he has a broken rib, going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. There's a lot of players that get hurt and injured, but I know you played with broken ribs before, but I don't know if you ever tried to hit a 95-mile-per-hour fastball with broken ribs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this rib is not newly broken. They broke that rib back in September. Just a misdiagnosis on it.
Yeah.
And this is one of those scenarios, because it's the upper rib, Charlton, that's broke. It's very difficult because it's right there under his armpit when he's trying to swing the bat.
Yeah.
It's a little different with a baseball player than what it would be with a football player.
Yeah. So I wish him well. Go ahead and get the rest up. They don't want to shoot guys up with broken ribs. If you have a twisted ankle, I understand. With broken ribs, you got it. That's right by your lung.
They shoot you up with broken ribs.
Oh, really?
How do you think he was playing? Like I said, this happened back in September when he broke the rib last year.
Okay. And the broken ribs could have come out of some bet you didn't pay up in New York City, but I'm just being flippant about that. Also, on the West Coast, we say if you're not cheating, you're not trying. The LA Angels of Anaheim, they fired the visiting clubhouse manager for helping opponents illegally doctor baseballs. How do you doctor a baseball, Big C? I've heard a guy spitting on the baseball, rubbing saliva or some snot on the baseball or some resin on the baseball. But if you can hit a 95-mile-per-hour pitch, it doesn't matter what happens to be on it, or does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Baseball has always had the balls off. You got to realize every baseball that comes into play in major leagues is rubbed down with mud originally. That's the reason why the balls are not white. They rub them down with this Mississippi mud. Comes from this one particular mud farm and they've been supplying Major League Baseball for over 70 years from the same family.
Yeah.
And so the balls are altered from the time they get to the stadium, Charlton. They alter with the first layer of mud.
Yeah.
And, I mean, pitchers have put on stuff on baseballs forever. They keep it under their hat. They keep it under the glove. They keep it in their belt. They keep it anywhere that they can.
Yeah.
They put rosin on it. So to say that somebody's doctoring a baseball, that's baseball. It's been the history of baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, baseball right now is trying to hype itself.
Yeah.
It's hyping itself with the cheating scandal from the Astros. Baseball, if you look at it, it has taken a third seat to everything. Hockey was just about ready to pass baseball in popularity and excitement.
Yeah.
And so baseball, every couple of years, it reinvents itself. And if you go back and check the news cycles, from a decade ago and 2 decades ago, we had the steroid scandal. You know, we've always had some type of doctoring of the baseball going on. We had the cork bat scandal. So every couple of years, baseball is trying to rejuvenate itself, and they create their own scandals. It doesn't come from the outside. It comes from internal.
From internal. Jose Canseco told us about that. He said everybody that's good is doing something wrong, Big C. Now, does this affect Mike Trout? Think about this. The Angels reportedly were tipped off by Major League Baseball that Brian Bubba Harkins allegedly had been providing the sticky substances to improve opponents' grip on the baseball. Now, I hear that Snoop Dogg is in commercials with Martha Stewart, and he has some sticky substances, but there are players that are always taking the fall. Does this in any way put any type of stain on Mike Trout? Because why didn't Mike Trout tip him off? You know what I'm saying? Jose Canseco said everybody knows what's going on. But, you know, of course they got to protect Mike Trout's name, not trying to implicate him in anything. But if you're the most valuable player on the team, wouldn't you get access to the most valuable tipping rules? Big C, your thoughts?
But you're talking about a pitcher doing this, not Mike Trout, who is hitting the ball. That's the same thing with Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
Why didn't he tip off everybody? When you use Mike Trout's name in this, you also got to look at all the rest of the members on the team that are not being implemented also. So, like I said, baseball creates its own scandals. Baseball knows how to make itself popular.
Yeah.
It is what's going on right now, spring training. There is more interest in baseball in spring training than there is this March Madness.
Yeah.
They're talking about baseball spring training more than they're talking about the latter part of the season in the NBA. You got NFL free agency on the horizon, but Major League Baseball is taking the top of the heap. They're creating their own interest, and you're falling for it like everybody else. They're hyping themselves. They need to stay on the top of the media meal, Charlton, because think about what's been going on with the NFL. They're talking about free agency. They're talking about a new collective bargaining agreement. In spring ball, as baseball is starting, you're talking about the final quarter of the NBA season, the hunt for the playoffs.
Yeah.
You're talking about March Madness in college basketball. Who's going to be a number one seed? Who's going to move across the country into another bracket?
Yeah.
And baseball is saying, we got to do something to pep us up. NHL hockey is going on, and in cities where hockey is king, baseball doesn't mean anything this time of year because the NHL is being played.
Yeah.
And so baseball has stolen the spotlight from everybody. They've stolen the spotlight from the NFL, which is the hardest damn thing to do in sports. Baseball is talked about more than the combine was. So baseball's got it right. They got the best union in the world, and you're going to tell me that the union is not part of this, that the commissioner and the owners are not part of this? When you leak information, you think about Washington, D.C., all the information that keeps coming out of Washington, D.C., people say, I have a source in the White House. I have a source in the White House. I have a source here. This is the same thing as baseball. Baseball is its own PR mogul. They make people think about baseball. They're not going to go away, so they create scandals about themselves. Who's policing who? Baseball is policing baseball. And when they didn't get rid of anybody from the Houston Astros, they got rid of an owner. They got rid of a GM. What the hell did they have to do with the players doing on the field? Okay? Players were doing it. No player was suspended. No player was fined. Baseball has manufactured its own publicity meal.
I mean, they say if they're not thinking about you, then you're irrelevant. Even bad publicity is better than no publicity. I want to close out today's show talking about, and again, everybody has an opinion. That's what I love about opinions. They don't have to be based on anything other than somebody's opinion. I just want to read out the top 10 power rankings in college basketball. I know we're getting into all the tournaments. Kansas is coming in at number 1. You know, the Big 12 champions are hitting their streak, Big C. Number 2, Gonzaga out of the West Coast Conference coming in strong. They had a big win over their rival St. Mary's of Moraga. Dayton out of the Atlantic 10, facing perhaps the biggest challenge of their A-10 schedule, the Flyers. They trounced Rhode Island on the road by 27 points on Wednesday, and we'll see what happens as they play their next game. Also, number 4, Baylor. At one time, they were at top of the mountain in college basketball down in the Big 12, and they've gotten weaker as we've gotten into where it really matters, Big C. Any concerns for Baylor, Big C? Your thoughts?
No, I mean, they're playing a tough Big 12 schedule. You think about it, they're in the same conference as Kansas is. They split the regular season schedule between the two. They haven't gotten to the conference tournament yet, Charlton. But Baylor will be all right. They're a solid offensive team, and they're very physical.
San Diego State coming in at number 5 out of the Mountain West, winning that conference. I'm looking forward to the Aztecs playing good. I don't know if they'll get past the Sweet 16. We'll see what happens. Number 6, Florida State out of the ACC. They're coming in very strong. They have a good chance to make a run. They're very athletic. Number 7, Kentucky.
Well, Leonard Hamilton is a tremendous coach down at Florida State, and he doesn't get the credit nationwide. He's an African-American coach, and when you look at what Florida State has done down in Tallahassee over the last 5 years with Leonard Hamilton and being ranked in the top 10, tops in the ACC, they can have a chance to go a long way in this tournament.
Yeah, they're now a home win over Boston College away from clinching at least a share of his first ACC regular season title. Number 7, Kentucky, them Wildcats down south in the Moonshine State, Big Z. They earned a big home win over Auburn, and they collapsed at Rupp Arena. Big C surrendered a 17-point lead to Tennessee, but they're always going to be in the thick of things. Number 8, Villanova, out of the once mighty Big East. Them good old boys, the Wildcats, their coach probably is you think Jay's the best dressed coach in NCAA basketball, Big C, with the $2,000 shoes? Your thoughts?
Well, I love Jay Wright down there. When you think about what Jay has to do at an academic level that these kids have to be at to get into Villanova, and Jay Wright is steadfast. He's won 2 national championships in the past decade, Charlton. He's going to be a coach once he gets in the tournament. Hard to get out.
Hard to get out. Number 9, Louisville. Them good old boys out of the ACC. The Cardinals' recent 3-point woes continued against Virginia Tech, but they still have a lot in the tank. Looking forward to them making a nice run. And number 10 is Creighton out of the Big East. A lot like them good old boys from Villanova, Big C. They should have a nice run also in the tournament. They had a loss to St. John's, but primarily they're still a good team that's going to make some noise coming down this stretch in the tournament. I wanted to bring up one thought, too, as I get into our final segment. I think the UCLA Bruins, they're not right now ranked as one of the top 20 teams in the country, but at 19-11, they're on a tear and a nice run in the Pac-12 Conference, and I look for this team actually making some noise in NCAA March Madness. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you look at that, and so many teams, that's a bubble team having only 19 wins at this time. Most likely they're going to have to win the Pac to get in, Charlton, because when you think about the great teams across the country and you talk about the top 20, top 25, you know you're going to get 64 teams into the tournament, 65 teams. So most likely a couple of West Coast teams will get in.
Yeah.
But when you think about the cream of the crop in this year's tournament, Charlton, you got to look at the Big Ten and the ACC. I look at them having some dominant teams. The SEC is not far behind. But when we talk about trailing, you already talked about the Big 12 having 2 of the top 4 teams in the country in Kansas and Baylor. That's where basketball is being played right now. And I know you always use the thing that people have other things to do.
Yeah.
But basketball is basketball wherever you are, in whatever city. A college atmosphere is a college atmosphere. And if you can't draw in the big boys to come in and play at your school, then you're always going to be sitting there chasing that dream.
Yeah, but UCLA right now, they have a half-game lead out in the Pac-12 over Oregon. I look forward to them making a nice run in the tournament. It'd be great for the role of college basketball. I wanna go into this segment that I love because it's opinionated and everybody has an opinion. But when you think of some of the top players of all time in men's college basketball, I'm just gonna throw out my thoughts and you can give your thoughts on it. You could put in a guy like J.J. Redick out of Duke, played at 2002 to 2006. He averaged 19.9 points a game, only 2.7 rebounds, but 2.2 assists on a team at Duke where everybody passed the ball around. He had a 91.2% free throw shooting percentage for his career. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you look at numbers like that, those are pedestrian numbers. I mean, if you would take J.J. Redick and try to compare him to Dwight Bo Lamar out of Lamar University, a guy who averaged 37 points a game in college and played the guard position, the point guard, that's when you're talking about scoring. And I mean, if you look at the top scorer right now at Marquette, and the kid's name eludes me, he's averaging 33 points a game leading college basketball. And if we look at Jay Morant, that was around last year, and who's the number one pick of the Grizzlies and most likely going to be the NBA Rookie of the Year. I mean, there's been some dominant players in college basketball.
Well, even if we go, say, overall over the last, 40 years or so, because it's ironic how people can – I remember we were talking yesterday about Zion Williamson, and I think he's going to be a superstar, but it might take him 2 or 3 years. If I look at Michael Jordan, considered maybe the greatest basketball player of all time, or at least in the top 3 or 4. Michael Jordan at North Carolina from 81 to 84, his numbers weren't that great. He averaged 17.7 points a game, 5 rebounds a game, so he was in the paint around the rim a lot. Only 1.8 assists, Big C. So they're not obscene. They were not, eye-popping numbers, but he got better once he got around the grown men in the world of the NBA, and that's when he became a better player, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's what college is about, spending more than 1 year in college getting better. I mean, we've had a wealth of players in college that have gotten better in pros. I mean, you think about Hakeem Olajuwon. When he came to this country from Africa, he had never played he really hadn't played basketball. He was a soccer player.
Right.
And then you look at what Hakeem did, down there with 5 Slamma Jamma in Houston. And then going on to greatness in the NBA, winning 2 NBA titles and an MVP.
Yeah.
Became one of the most dominant centers in the NBA. And when you talk about big men who couldn't run, he ran every big man in the game to death while he was playing. Nobody could keep up with him. Ewing, Shaq, all of those big guys were tired at the end of the game.
Think about this name, Jerry West at West Virginia from 1957 to 1960. He probably never even had a thought that he would have his emblem on the NBA jerseys. He averaged 24.8 points a game, 13.3 rebounds per game, and 2.8 assists per game. Here's a guy where the numbers were in college were more impressive than in the NBA. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, look at his teammate that he had, Elgin Baylor, who played at the University of Seattle.
Yeah.
Who, when he came out, he averaged a triple-double in college at the University of Seattle and was one of the NBA all-time greats. He's still, with the Los Angeles Clippers as a general manager. But, I mean, look at Elton Brand when he played at Duke. He had better numbers than J.J. Redick. He's the general manager now of the Philadelphia 76ers. But anytime you ever want to compare numbers in college basketball, you have to look at Pete Maravich. Pete Maravich is college basketball's all-time leading scorer. They didn't even have a three-point shot when Pete Maravich was playing college basketball. He averaged 42 points a game in his college career. Think about that, 42 points a game with a 2-point shot.
Yep.
This man was unbelievable. He has more 50-point games in one season than any college basketball player ever scored in their career.
Those are great numbers, and oftentimes it's who you're playing against too. The great Walter
He
Stilt
was playing in the SEC.
In the SEC. Well, think about this man and what he could have done in the SEC as well. The great Walter Stilt Chamberlain played at Kansas in 1956 to 1958. Big C. The great Wilt Chamberlain averaged 30 points a game, 18.3 rebounds per game. Nobody could handle the great Walter Stilt. Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but see, when he went to the NBA as a rookie, his numbers went down.
Yeah.
He averaged only 26 points a game as a rookie in the NBA. So, I mean, everybody makes that adjustment. Look at Lou Alcindor when he came to the NBA. This guy was the number 2 scorer in the NBA as a rookie.
Yeah.
The next year, he was the leading scorer in the league and won a championship in Milwaukee. So, I mean, it all depends on the situation that you go into in the pros. Look at Steph Curry there in Golden State. He was at Davidson. Everybody overlooked him. He went 7th in the first round. People say he was too slight. He wasn't a great player.
Yeah.
What has he done? Back-to-back MVPs in the NBA.
Back-to-back MVPs in the NBA. Here's another great player that someone could argue is the best in the universe in the history of college basketball. Oscar Robertson. He played at Cincinnati 1957 to 1960. He averaged 33.8 points per game. He averaged 15.2 rebounds per game. And they call him the Big O, but those numbers you can stack them up with anybody in the world of college basketball. Big C, your thoughts?
You can. I mean, Oscar Robertson was one of the greatest players in college and professional basketball. But even with those great numbers, was he better than Bill Russell? Bill Russell, you got to remember, won back-to-back titles at San Francisco during that same time when the Big O was in college. Not only that, left there and went to the Olympics, won 7 consecutive titles in the NBA.
Yeah.
And just a point to touch to that, Rocket Richard today passed away, hockey player, 84 years old, one of the all-time greats with the Montreal Canadiens. And he's the only player in NHL history to have 11 Stanley Cup championships. He and Bill Russell were the most decorated professional athletes of all time. I know everyone talks about Wayne Gretzky in hockey, Gordie Howe, and those players. And in the NBA, everybody wants to talk about Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson.
Yep.
But Bill Russell is the greatest basketball player to ever play on this planet, as well as Rocket Richard was the greatest hockey player to ever play on this planet.
Very good news. Our thoughts and prayers are definitely with his family. As we close out, just a couple more, Big C. The great Bill Russell, as you just talked about, University of San Francisco, the Dons, 1953 to 1956. He only averaged 21 points a game, but he averaged 20.3 rebounds per game. Talking about having the Houston Rockets could have used his performance, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Bill was just Bill. I mean, this was, you think about the teammates that he had when he was in high school. Kurt Flood was there in high school with him. Frank Robertson was there in high school with him. These guys were phenomenal. And, you know, there was one other guy who also played in Major League Baseball that they were all in high school together in Oakland.
Yeah.
But Bill Russell, you know, he's the class of all basketball when you think about him.
Yeah, he really was. I know you talked about Pistol Pete Maravich. He was doing his thing, dropping 44 points a game. I loved it. And before we finish with the final player, I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on the apps that I love called Google. Or Alexa, just say Google. Or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon TV, also a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate the way that's going. Also launching a real estate channel in the spring of 2020. Looking forward to getting 100 real estate brokers to list their properties on TV, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of success doing that. Big C, another great player. I don't mean to give you heartburn on Friday, but Bill Walton, I can't stand his broadcast. I think he does a disservice to the Pac-12, and no one would question that, but a lot of young kids, they don't understand sometimes what he's talking about. They're not learning anything. There's a guy in the West Coast that I like by the name of Dan Belwamini. I think he sticks to the facts and talks about the game outside of some other ancillary things that Bill Walton talks about. But he did drop 20 points a game. It was really the 15.7 rebounds that made him a star. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, he was just in the line of a lot of great UCLA players. When you look at the UCLA players over time with John Wooden, here's a guy who won 10 NCAA titles. Charlton, you didn't win there with a lot of slouch players. Yeah. And I think of some of the great teams he had with the players he had out there, Keith Wilkes, Curtis Rose, Sidney Wicks.
Yep.
You know, these guys could play. Gail Goodrich played out there. Lou Alcindor, you know, Hudson, Allen.
Yep.
I mean, just a wealth of players. Kiki Vanderway.
Yep.
And Kiki Vanderway, to me, was one of the most underrated players to ever play at UCLA. He went on to star with the Denver Nuggets for years. But he was a superstar at UCLA and in the NBA. But everyone knows what Bill Walton did as part of that 88-win streak that they had there at UCLA. Couple national titles, Charlton. Just a phenomenal player in college.
And finally, just my opinion, the #1 college basketball player in the history of the universe, the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, UCLA, 1966 to 1969. He averaged 26.4 points a game, 15.5 rebounds, but he was also a guy that could block a lot of shots. And it's amazing that he would go on to become the all-time scoring leader in the history of the NBA. Big C, your thoughts?
I mean, he did it on both sides, Charlton, college and pro. I mean, he was a dominant individual. He had his troubles in college from time to time. Elvin Hayes outplayed him in that greatest game down at the Houston Astros. I mean, and it comes down to opinions. Like I said, to me, Pistol Pete Maravich is the greatest basketball player in college basketball history. You go back and look at the numbers that Pistol put up, And he was like Kareem. He played in that two-point era where there was no three-point shot.
Yeah.
If Pistol Pete had a three-point shot when he played college basketball, he would have averaged 55 points a game. But he left college basketball in 3 years, averaging 42.5 points a game. Still not bad.
Yeah, he's an all-time career points leader in NCAA, 3,667. That means he didn't pass the ball a lot, but it's still good when you can drop it down. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, you got your big MMA event down in Vegas this week. Will it have the luster of the Fury Wilder event 2 weeks ago?
It depends on how much weight they carry on their head, Big C. But don't walk into the ring with 44 pounds on your head. You can follow Big C Sports every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide on the #1 network in the United States of America for podcasts, iHeartRadio podcast. You can also follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. I just ask everyone, ask Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and you'll hear our show pop up there. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.